So what's today? Today is Monday, December 28th, and we've
Yeah,
had about a week of NBA tip-off, right? The season
yeah.
started on
Tipped off
Tuesday.
on the 22nd.
So I was trying to look at like standings and stuff, and most teams have played 2 to 3 games, with the exception of like the Thunder and the Rockets because they had their game canceled because of
Yeah, they're
COVID.
postponed.
But for the most part, the teams have played 2 to 3 games. So that's kind of what we're going off of. It is still very early in the season to really making any substantial judgment calls, but we're going to do it anyway and just kind of talk about what we've seen so far in the last week. Break it down by specific teams. I think like I could start with a team and then we could go to a team that you want to talk about and we'll just go back and forth.
Yeah, I'm into it.
Cool. So I'm going to kick it off talking about the Golden State Warriors, which is a pretty fun one. I think there's a lot to unpack here. So right now they have one win, and it was against the Chicago Bulls last night, which was just a ridiculous game. Um, I will say, in the Warriors' defense, their 2 losses before that were against really good teams. I mean, they opened up the season against the Brooklyn Nets, which we'll talk about, and the Bucks, which we'll talk about. So starting 0-2, I wasn't like too concerned about it. It was like, okay, those were good teams that they probably didn't have much of a chance against anyway. Going up against the Bulls, I didn't know what to expect because I just know that both teams were struggling. Both teams were pretty hungry to get their first win. And again, not to talk too much about the Bulls, but yesterday's game, I feel like the Bulls played really well and should have won that game, but the Warriors stuck around mostly because of Bulls turnovers. And Steph was like struggling pretty bad in the first half. And it wasn't until the second half where he like started making some threes, started getting the free throw line, getting into a groove, getting his team back into it. And then they ended up winning on a game winner by Damian Lee. So it was like they barely won that game.
Yeah,
Um, so I guess my key takeaway from the Warriors, it's kind of funny. The Bulls broadcast ran a graphic at one point. I don't know if you saw this. It was kind of going viral on Twitter, but it was like replacing clay with bricks.
oh yeah.
And it was literally like a graphic of like Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre Jr. and their numbers, specifically, I think their 3-point numbers. And it's atrocious. Like, I think Wiggins maybe hit 2 out of like, I don't know, 15 to 20. And Oubre has a crazy stat of like basically all of his made baskets were dunks or like at the rim, and everything outside the paint, he's like 0 for 30 something. So, like, just straight up not hitting anything at all. And like that's the core of their problems right now. It's like if neither of those guys are doing anything or making shots at all, that's going to be rough. They're going to struggle.
Yeah,
They're probably not even going to be a playoff team if they can't get like at least some kind of production out of either of those two guys.
yeah. The thing with the Warriors, like to the point about Wiggins, like when every time I did pop up and was like, would look at the screen on the Christmas Day game, it's just Wiggins missing another open shot,
Just
and I
bricks.
think, and I was like, I know he's like the 3 point shooting is not necessarily a specialty, and it almost feels like you can feel the like drop off of having Oubre because normally you would have Clay stretching the floor for guys like Wiggins to drive. And now you've got like Wiggins is the guy that's getting those open shots because nobody's going to leave Steph. So it's not an ideal offense for them. The bright spot for them is Wiseman is looking kind of good. Like
Yeah.
if I were to redo after 3 games my rookie of the year pick, I might be like,
Right.
purely
Yeah.
because of like Tick and like the amount of responsibility he's going to have. Like I might pick Wiseman. I think Killian's still got a good shot, mainly because of the reasons we talked about. But him, like, he's going to be a focal point of the offense at some point. But yeah, other than that, yeah, not a ton excited about the Warriors other than like seeing Steph back out there like making shots, and I think once Draymond gets back out there too, they'll be a little bit better. But
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Both of those things, the Wiseman factor, I think, is like the one bright spot right now. It's like, yeah, they lost these games, but the times that we've seen, and we've seen a lot of good things come from him. I feel like there's a lot of potential there. And then the point with Draymond too, like obviously he's not going to come back and they're all of a sudden going to be like a playoff
yeah,
contending team, but I think he does bring a lot to the table, just as another playmaker, just as a smart player out there that kind of runs the offense. And he's just like, he's like the prototype of like a glue guy, an energy guy, and just like kind of sets the tone for the team. So even just that, like not just on court, but I feel like just his off court presence
yeah,
kind of will light a fire under them, hopefully. One thing that last point on this is I feel like there's been a lot of just like flack on Steph Curry that I feel like is a little bit unwarranted, like kind of people trying to make statements about how like he needs a super team in order to be great and all this stuff. And first of all, it's only been 3 games. And second of all, I think it's like so unfair. I mean, I just pointed out too, like those two guys aren't doing anything, Oubre and Wiggins. He obviously needs some support, but I think it's unfair to like set this expectation of like in order for to be a great player you have to be able to carry a team that's not good into greatness. Like, you know what I mean? Like that shouldn't be the bar. Like that's like an outlier. Like if you're able to do that, that really does mean you're great, but that doesn't mean that you have to be that good to be like a great player. Like it feels like people are expecting like, okay, Curry should be good enough if he's this great of a player that everyone talks about to just carry this team like single-handedly. And like that's just so untrue because basketball, it's the NBA is very driven by superstars, especially today, but it's still a team sport. Like you still
yeah,
have 5 guys out there at a time, and it's not just going to be like one guy carrying the entire team. And yeah, there's been instances maybe of that, like LeBron James and his Cavs teams back in the day, but like I don't think that should be like the bar that we're setting here to like determine how great a player is.
yeah. And to close on that point, like the bar of people that carry really bad teams to anywhere near greatness are like LeBron and Jordan. Like look at Jordan's 35 a game
Yeah.
seasons early on, like they were terrible. So yeah, people
Maybe
need
Allen
to lay off.
Iverson, Allen Iverson in
Yeah.
that Sixers team. Like,
But they were
yeah,
at least built around like we're just gonna play defense, you do the scoring, and it's an
right.
elite. Like that wouldn't work at all today. Like no,
No,
you need way more scoring. Like you can't put up 81 points and
no,
win a game in 2020. So, but yeah, people need to lay off Steph for sure.
agreed.
Um, which is a interesting transition to the team that I want to talk about. First is the Nets, the first team that we got to see this new and improved, like fully loaded Nets team play against was the Dubs. So they completely smashed the Dubs. They beat the Celtics, and then in what kind of feels like an anomaly, maybe a little bit of a like I don't want to say hangover because it was during the game, but like lost to the Hornets. Dinwiddie's injury kind of probably had a little bit to do with that. But the Hornets, who we're going to talk about later, is like they're fun. They're feisty little team. They'll try to they'll probably steal a few wins like that against some of the top teams this year. But takeaways from the 3 games we've seen from them is like Katie and Kyrie look like really, really strong. Like scary if you're in the Eastern Conference and you're the Bucks specifically, like be worried. That team is pretty strong. I think specifically when I think about KD, it's like the shooting component of his game is not impacted by his Achilles being hurt. So like it's really going to be like his more explosive, driving and cutting and that kind of thing. And his right now, like him shooting pull-up threes on guys, like that hasn't changed. And his ability to do that is going to stretch his longevity. Kyrie has been pretty much just all about ball so far. Disappointed that I didn't grab him in fantasy. Like I remember I had an opportunity to. And I'm like, maybe Kyrie's going to surprise us all this year.
I've got him. So,
So yeah, like health again. Like that's always Kyrie's thing. He's got to be out there to be doing what he's doing. Overall, they look like a complete juggernaut offensively. We'll see how they gel defensively because I feel like they don't have a ton of like lock up perimeter defenders. We know that that's probably the one area where KD might be a step slower when it comes to the playoffs.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll have to see how they work defensively. Jared Allen and DeAndre are a nice pair to have back there for those nights where people are getting beat off the dribble. But I feel like the one very, very sad part so far is like them losing Dinwiddie to the partial ACL tear. So they lost a little bit of that depth that they've had, but I think they're still looking like a really solid team so far.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I was going to bring up that point too with Dinwiddie. That's definitely a huge loss, especially if he's going to be out for the whole season. But I do think that they are pretty deep. And I think we talked about it a bit last time too. Like their role players have a lot of experience together already. I feel like I see that when I see them play. I really like Joe Harris. I don't know I don't know what it is about him, but like I think he gets kind of typecast as that like white guy shooter, and like that's all he can do. But like he is much more than that. Like he can shoot lights out, but also like he can do so much more than that. Like I feel like he surprises you when you watch his game, and then he'll like do some kind of crazy drive or something. You're like, oh, was that Joe Harris?
Yeah.
So I like guys like that. I think that that's going to be the key because I think we've seen right away that KD and Kyrie together, I mean, work. Like, like I don't know if there was any concern about that, if they're like we're even going to gel together on the court, but like I think it works perfectly fine offensively.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a matter of how healthy they can stay, and then the role players and how consistent they can be. Like, you know, if you take Kyrie and KD off the court, who's kind of running the show? And like we said, I think Dinwiddie was kind of a big factor there. So it might be a lot of shift towards Karis LeVert and what he can kind of do and bring to the table as kind of that third guy, maybe.
Yeah. I forget if he's one of the two of them, Dinwiddie or LeVert's in a contract here. And I'm like, I feel like one of the two, like somebody's going to put up some numbers this year. And LeVert, hopefully, being on my fantasy team will also do just that. So
Yeah, I know like you were pretty high on them. I think I was kind of a skeptic, but even just after these couple games, I think I definitely underestimated them. Like they're going to be a real threat. They're because like we talked about too, KD coming back after I forget they had the number of like hasn't played an NBA game in like 500 days or something like crazy like that.
yeah,
And I was kind of expecting to see some rust, and there really wasn't much rust. So like if this is still him getting back to like game shape and game mode, if he's
yeah.
only let's say like 80 to 90% right now, that's scary because what is he going to be when he's 100%? It's going to be insane.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing some like mid-season form KD when they're like when the games have a little more meaning too, because right now he's just getting back into game shape and he's looking good so far.
For sure. I could transition to another East team that is kind of, I guess, the favorite to come out of the East, which is the Milwaukee Bucks. I think there's probably some early, maybe concern from Bucks fans. I just kind of want to unpack that a little bit. I know right now they are 1-2. Their first game was a heartbreaking loss to the Celtics off of like a crazy game-winning shot by Tatum, and then like a missed free throw by Giannis. And then their first win was against the Warriors, which is like, okay, it's the Warriors. Um, And then they lost to the Knicks yesterday, which is just kind of like, what happened there? I didn't get a chance to like watch much of that game, but I was just kind of like looking at the box score. They shot like 18% from three, which is just like atrocious. So I guess
Yeah.
the ball just wasn't going in. And I think there's going to be nights like that. And I think the Bucks are very much this team, and we know this from last year. It's like it doesn't really matter as much until it gets to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like I think there's not a reason for major concern here, but I think the things to kind of unpack here are the depth of the team. I do feel like there was some shifting and some additions. They lost some people, they added some people, and I feel like they lost a little bit of depth. I know that some of the new additions are like DJ Augustin, Bobby Portis. They got Bryn Forbes from the Spurs, so not like super sexy names or anything, but I think I'm willing to give a little more time to their bench players to kind of get acclimated to this team and kind of figure it out. I think the shining spots are, Giannis is Giannis, and Chris Middleton has been amazing in these last 3 games. I think Drew Holiday, I talked a lot about him before, is a huge addition. I don't think the numbers on paper are really like standing out quite yet, but I think he's just adding something different to the team in terms of defensively and just another person that could kind of handle the ball and play the point guard and get you a bucket when needed. He's not going to get you 40 points a game or 30 points a game, but he's going to kind of play that role. So I'm not concerned by any means. I think their record is a little scary when you look at it. I think the true test is they have their next 2 games are against Miami, like 2 games against Miami in a row. And that's going to be the true test here to kind of see, a temperature check of what they really are. And I think it's still pretty fresh in their minds that they were eliminated by this team in the bubble not that long ago. So I'm pretty excited to just kind of see what comes of those games and then maybe redissect the team a little bit more after that and see make some more judgments based off of the performance on those games.
Yeah, the Bucks, I feel like I'm like very like the playoffs are the only thing that I feel like they can measure themselves. Like they just dominated the regular season so much.
Yeah.
I almost feel like without having fully earned it, like they're kind of taking the regular season, kind of like the Lakers might be taking this regular season. Like we know we are good enough to get to the playoffs. It'll be interesting to see if they like can keep that 1 or 2 seed, because I think this year, especially if towards the end of the season, like even some fans are able to get into the stands, like I feel like that was honestly like one of the biggest like downfalls for them in the bubble. Like Miami is the perfect team to have like no distractions, no it's just us in the game. And I feel like some of the guys on the Bucks probably feed off of that like energy,
totally,
that really tough home crowd. So I'm similarly like I'm not saying that they're finished or anything. I think there's a very small chance that they like try to make a move before the trade deadline if things aren't looking like great. But yeah, I think Drew's a big upgrade, and then like in general, Giannis is Giannis. So
yeah, the one thing I'll say with Giannis is he's got to work on his free throws, man. Like he has to, and like I don't know if that gets brought up enough. Like I think he's aware that he's not a great free throw shooter, but when it comes down to like crunch time, especially that first game against Celtics, and like think about how often those situations will happen in the playoffs or have happened or going to happen. Like it's going to come down, like every point counts, every bucket matters. He's got to improve that free throw shot, man.
Yeah, either improve the free throw or find a way to like scare people from 3, because they're always going to play off of them. And that's just going to result in him driving and having to make free throws. So it's one of the two, Giannis. You got to do one or the other.
For sure.
but that's another good segue to the Celtics, because that's I feel like top 4 teams in the East. We've got Brooklyn, Milwaukee, the Celtics, and then who was I going to say is the fourth one? Miami, in my opinion. The top 4 teams in the East, and the Celtics' first and only win so far this season has been against the Bucks on extremely, I won't call it luck, but extremely fortunate game winner by Tatum.
Yeah.
And in watching them play, because I watched a little bit of them get destroyed on Christmas by Brooklyn, and then I saw some of the highlights of the pretty close Pacers loss, and I'm like, I need to see them with Kemba. I feel like I need to see them with Kemba to really get a good read on them. Thompson does feel like an upgrade, especially if Tice is healthy and is able to come off the bench and provide that same energy and juice. But they really need Kemba back to have that extra creator offensively, because they're always kind of lacking in that, where it's just Tatum or Brown and God forbid Marcus Smart trying to make plays in the half court, and depth in general is just lacking. They don't have a ton of depth. It won't matter as much, because at the end of the day, when the last 5 minutes is going to be Kemba, Tatum, Brown, Thompson, and Smart on the court. So that's got to be their 5. So that's kind of where I feel we need to see them. I do feel like they need Brown to kind of take a leap. So far he has. He's averaging 25 a game in his first 3 games. So he's filling a lot of that space right now, but they're still 1 and 2. So yeah, they're going to need Kemba back out there and help.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That was kind of my biggest assessment. I was happy to see Tatum and Brown really kind of taking ownership, and like you said, they're that 1-2 punch. They're the big 2, but they're going to need a little bit more support behind them, and a lot of that is the fact that Kemba's out, and they lost Gordon Hayward. That was another guy that could kind of handle the ball and make plays. Yeah, and I agree too with Tristan Thompson. I think that was a pretty good upgrade in terms of bigs too. I know that I feel like they kind of struggled having Tice as kind of their only true big, and so I feel like they got out rebounded a lot, which was an issue. Because they've been lacking in depth, the games I watched, they were playing a lot of their rookie, this guy, what was his name? Peyton Pritchard,
yeah.
Peyton Pritchard or something like that. And I was actually kind of impressed. I'm who is this guy? And then I realized he was a rookie. I'm wow, he's getting a lot of minutes. And then, I put 2 and together. I'm well, yeah, because Kemba, and they don't have Wanamaker anymore. So I was this is, I guess, a good opportunity for a young rookie to get some reps right away. But that's not what you want this early in the season, to be depending on a rookie to kind of make some things happen for you.
He feels like an upgrade from Wanamaker, though. Just watching
so far,
him,
yeah,
watching him, he does. But yeah, I agree. The idea of having him being that much of an impact player is a little bit sketchy. Don't want to put that much on that guy yet. So
cool. Last team is kind of an obvious one. We might as well talk about them. The Lakers. So far, their one loss was the first game of the season, which was against the Clippers. And I think, if anything, we kind of talked about it too. I feel like the Clippers needed that win more than the Lakers did. I think it said more about what the Clippers can do than what the Lakers are. Literally the same thing happened last season. That was the opening game of the season, and the Clippers won by a lot. So clearly that didn't mean too much. I think even the first game of the bubble, I don't remember who won. I think the Clippers might have won that game too. So, that matchup in the regular season, we'll go back to it once in a while, or before the playoffs, but I don't think it says too much about the team itself, at least from the Lakers standpoint. I think an interesting thing that's happened in the last week with the Lakers was I don't know if it was yesterday or 2 days ago. AD didn't play, and they
Yeah.
still won. I think it was against Timberwolves, so not like an amazing team by any means, but there were, I think, 6 guys that scored in double digits. So, I mean, they're deep. And we talked a bit about this
Yeah.
last time too. Like the moves that they made were major upgrades. Like turning Dwight and JaVale into Marc Gasol and Montrezl Harrell. Like that's an upgrade because
Yeah.
they're more versatile. They're bigs that can still kind of play those big roles, but then they're more versatile offensively and better defensively, I would say.
Yeah.
And I think the key factor, and I feel like you've talked about this before too, is Dennis Schroeder. Like Schroeder is, I've even felt this comparison before, like with him and Rondo. I feel like are like at least Rondo in his prime, like similar players. And so with Schroeder now, you're basically getting playoff Rondo, but in the regular season, like the best version of Rondo in the regular season,
And
which
a better
I think
shooter.
is a better shooter
Yeah.
and can do more. So that's a major upgrade at that position. So I think they're scary because they've just gotten better. And they Danny Green turned into Wes Matthews. So it's like again kind of similar 3-and-D guys. Um, I'm not too worried about him. I think a thing that was brought up a lot last season, and I guess maybe in previous seasons, was like Kyle Kuzma and like how good can he be consistently. I think a lot of people wanted him to be like the third guy on that team, and I think that last year has proven, and I think this year is going to prove it too, that they don't really need like a defined third guy because they have like 5 or 6 guys that could be the third guy on any given night. Like all the guys I just named can be the third guy. There was a game where like Montrez had like 23 points or something, or like Schroeder could easily drop 25 to 30 points. So like they don't have to have a defined like this is our, Chris Bosh or whoever. Like they don't need to have like a big 3. It's like you have your big 2 and a bunch of guys that could be the third guy.
Yeah, and sometimes KCP will get really hot from
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
To score 20 for you. So
Alex
yeah,
Caruso out of nowhere just can like have a big game. So like that's what I mean. They're like 10th and 11th guy can still be like a third guy on any given night. So that's
yeah.
scary to me, and that's kind of my biggest takeaway is like they're deep and they're not going anywhere. They're
Yeah,
still my favorites.
they're built to coast through the regular season, get the 1 or 2 seed, and play in the playoffs, like go full, and gear up down the stretch. And then especially, this is the thing that I remember from last year that we never got to see happen, was like that Lakers Clippers matchup.
Yeah.
If they're in the stadium in the playoffs, if those teams meet in the conference finals, like it's home court for the Lakers no matter what happens. So that's such a interesting dynamic that means like they just don't have to go at it. It's hard during the regular season. They just got to get their sea legs by the time the playoffs rolls around. So it'll be interesting seeing that. But yeah, I think they're solid and terrifying. But the team that they did lose to on opening night was the Clippers. And it feels like the Clippers won both their rubber match game against the Nuggets, and then they won the rubber match that never was against the Lakers on opening night. So like they looked really, really solid for those 2 games, and then they just put up like the worst loss in franchise history a game later. And it makes me wonder if like they're gonna be very they need to be locked in. Like you would think that the Mavs game would have been the third rubber match because that was the team that a lot of people saw them struggle against mightily in the playoffs. And then they just jet the bit out of nowhere. 12% from 3, I think, is the number I saw.
Yeah.
Just plenty of PG-13 memes came from that. So to me, I feel like there's not enough like info or like games to see how they actually are defensively. I didn't really understand the Nick Batum move. Like every time people talk, like commentators, like, "Oh, what a great pickup! He's so versatile." I'm like, this guy's been terrible for like 4 years. He's
Overpaid
like,
too.
yeah, and overpaid. He's just like a tall, kind of lanky guy that has all this potential. So like maybe they're hoping like he'll be a good matchup guy against a team like the Lakers or Nuggets. So I'm not really sure about him. Like Ibaka does look like kind of an upgrade over Harrell. Like you can play him in more spots.
Yeah.
He's a little bit better of a shooter. Um, but the most important takeaway I saw from the Clippers, although they're 2-1, although the Mavs loss looked kind of crazy, is that like Lou Williams 34 looks like he's pretty out of it right now. I'm like, it's still early, but he's doing like 6 points a game, like looking like he's lost, like looking like guys can stay in front of him with no problem, not shooting that well. So that's the biggest like red flag worry for me,
Oh
especially
yeah.
like this guy's gonna be sixth man of the year again. Like, nope, maybe his like over the hillness actually showed up, but we'll have to see how he looks like 10, 15 games under. But that's the biggest takeaway for me. Like, despite their wins, like the 50-point loss is just like typical, probably after Christmas hangover game, like whatever. We got through the two big ones that we wanted to win. I don't know, but yeah, I'm worried about them mainly because I think Lou Williams is such a huge part of their offense. So if he's not picking up some slack there, they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, that's a huge point. I mean, we talked about it when we were talking about his potential to be sixth man, is that like he is known for consistently coming off the bench and, dropping buckets and keeping you in the game with your second unit. And if he's not doing that, who else is? And,
Right.
we talked about those guys. It's like, I don't know that they made enough moves or have enough depth to, be substantial when the stars are off the court. And I think a big like asterisk, maybe not even asterisk, but a thing to call out in that 50-point loss or however many it was. I mean, Kawhi didn't play. Like he was out. He had that really bad injury collision or whatever. Did you see that with
Yeah.
Serge elbowed him? Like how hard I mean, that Serge is a huge
He's
dude
got
and he's super
strong
strong,
elbows.
but holy crap, are his elbows made out of like steel or what? Because like Kawhi got messed up, man.
Yeah, he's the photo that I think it was Maria Taylor or something shared. I was like, he looked like he was in a boxing match and he was
Yeah,
like KO'd for.
straight up.
Yeah, it was
I think
ugly.
he had to get like 8 stitches or something too. I read.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean the good thing is that that's not a long-term injury or anything, but I think that just kind of went to prove how important he is to that team, how valuable he is just to be on the court, even if he's not having an incredible game. He's like a lot of offense runs through Kawhi Leonard, and he's kind of a guy too that could just not only lock up the best player on the other team defensively, but just get a bucket. I feel how many times is it just like there's not really a play going and Kawhi just pulls up like a mid-range jumper and just gets it going. Like that he's so key in that when making something out of nothing. And Paul George, I mean, he had an incredible first game against Lakers. I think he needed that. Like I feel like he felt like he needed to kind of prove himself, but like, can he do that consistently? And I just feel like he's become almost, like you said, a meme or like, I don't even know.
playoff
Like,
P, man.
yeah,
He
playoff.
did it to
I don't know.
himself.
He's doing it to himself, and it's tough. Like the interviews, I don't know if you caught that too after the first game when Charles Barkley asked him a question about the preferential treatment or whatever, and Paul George's answer was like a non-answer, and he basically like admitted that he does get preferential treatment. And I was just like, this is not a good look for you.
Yeah.
And I feel like after the blowout loss to the Mavericks, he had some excuses too about it being like
Yeah,
after Chris Tang.
and he like blamed. He was like, "Yeah, this one's on me," and it was like, dude, no, nobody thinks it's on you, Paul George. Like, you're not the
Yeah.
leader of the team. Like, I don't know. I don't know about that dude. Like, there was a moment in his career, like years ago, probably in the throes of like the LeBron like the
Yeah.
Heat Pacers series, where it was like, yeah, this dude's next up. Nope.
Yeah,
I'm not buying it. Yeah.
he was very much the next best player in the East after LeBron for a while, I feel like, with that Pacers team. Like I had a legitimate argument with someone before of like who's better between KD and PG, like in one of those seasons, which is like
Yeah.
it was obviously KD, but like it was a good enough. PG was putting up good enough numbers, and uh, his team was doing well enough to like warrant that actual argument and conversation. So
Yeah.
we've seen what he can do, but yeah, the playoffs is a whole other thing, and he needs to just kind of watch what he's saying because
Yeah.
he's getting ridiculed on the internet pretty badly. I think those were the main teams you want to talk about. We want to just
Yeah.
do kind of a lightning round of some other teams.
Yeah. Let's roll through them. I know we had the Suns and some other ones. So
You want to talk about the Suns?
yeah, let's do it. Their wins were against the Mavericks and the Kings, and their loss was also against the Kings. It was nice to see them like bounce back after that first loss versus the Kings. I loved how like they got to play like a down the stretch game because I think that was one of the main things that I was gonna hope to see from them. And their offense and like ability to like execute plays with, you've got CP3, you've got Booker, you've got pick and roll. Like they felt comfortable like down the stretch in a way that I don't think that they have probably felt too much besides their like 8-game win streak in the bubble. Like I don't think that they felt that comfortable before down the stretch. And then although the bench feels like a little bit shaky, other than Cam Johnson, who I honestly did not know was a real player until like watching him this year, like on 2K, like he doesn't have a photo. And I thought when I saw him the first time, like he was one of those guys they just add later.
Yeah, I only knew him because of the meme with Kobe White. So he played in North Carolina, and if you remember on draft
Okay.
day when they told Kobe that Cam Johnson was drafted like 11th by the Suns, and there was
Oh, that's what he was
the
saying.
wow, bro,
No.
wow, like his reaction. That's
I
that's
didn't
Cam
know that
Johnson.
was Cam who was getting drafted. Awesome.
Yeah, that's literally the only reason I know about him and what team he's on because of that happening.
But yeah, dude, he's been killing it. And like from three, like that's why I had him starting on my 2K team, and I was like, yeah, he's huge lift off the bench. That's the part that feels shaky to me though. Their bench is like, oh, who are these guys?
Yeah.
kind of thing when they play. So I could definitely see them scrapping for that 7-8 seed, and then maybe even reaching higher, depending on how the rest of the team plays during the year.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch much of them. I caught a little bit of, I think when they played the Mavs, and they didn't win, but they looked pretty good. And I think Bridges is another guy that is looking pretty solid. But yeah, I'm gonna go back on Ayton. I think Ayton's gonna be the factor there. I think, and I've seen some pretty good things from him so far in these first couple games. So I think if he just kind of continues to get those reps and try to establish his role as, the pick and roll guy, get a pick and pop game going, get some good rapport with CP, and I think he's gonna put up some good numbers.
Yeah, Aiden looks pretty good.
I want to do kind of a lightning round here and talk about all the teams that are currently undefeated, and it's a very surprising list right now. You've got the Magic, the Cavs, the Pacers, the Hawks. Those are all in the East. And then the only team in the West that's undefeated is the Thunder, but they've only played one game.
Yeah.
So, I guess my question is, are any of these teams for real? Or is this just kind of like you got kind of lucky? I mean, if you look at the matchups and what their wins are, it does kind of tell you a little something. I mean, the Magic played the Wizards twice, so two of their wins are against a very terrible Wizards team. I think the Cavs have beaten like the Pistons and the Hornets. They had one pretty good win, I think, was against the Sixers, which is like a pretty legitimate team. And then the Pacers, we talked about it. They just beat the Celtics. They've also beaten the Bulls, which doesn't mean much. Beat the Knicks, doesn't mean much. And then I think the Hawks have also beat the Bulls, and they beat the Grizzlies. So, like, are any of those teams going to be able to sustain? Or are they just getting lucky a little bit in these early games? Any thoughts there?
The Magic, I'm gonna go with a hard no, because they're like I don't without Isaacs. Like I think they're those are blips. The Cavs, I haven't seen any of their games. I know you mentioned the teams that they beat, but I'm like I haven't seen them. My gut says no.
They're doing this. They're doing this without Kevin Love, which is shocking as well. Love hasn't even played a game yet.
That's also a fair point. I don't know. I need to see them play like the Bucks.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Or even like the Raptors. Like even one of those like middling, like Miami or something. And then because we've all thought for a while. I don't know if you saw that the clip from Colin Sexton in college where it was like a whole bunch of his teammates got like fouled out. It was like 8 minutes left, and they were playing 3-on-5 or something, and like almost won. Like, and I was like, Sexton, that dude's a beast. Yeah. And Garland, like he's up and coming guy. Like he's got some potential there. I feel like they've got growth potential. Yeah. But yeah, I got to see them against some like real competition before I say like, yeah, you guys might be turning a corner.
I agree.
The Pacers, I feel like Oladipo's not there. Like, like he's not like there mentally. Because he just wants out, and some team, who knows who, might be really interested in grabbing him up before the deadline.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
I didn't realize how terrible the Thunder were. Like I remember we saw them at the bottom of a list, and they were like 30.
But they have like nobody.
And I was like, who are these guys? Like Lou Dort is starting.
Yeah, Lou Dort's legit
correctly
starting.
So no way for them. The only
and that was one game.
Yeah, the only team I say might be Atlanta. Because Trae Young's gotten better. Like they've got some decent pieces. I don't know if Cam Reddish is gonna do or be anything, but I feel like they've gotten better as a team. Can't remember who their coach is. Sorry, Atlanta Hawks. But I don't know. I feel like Atlanta might be a team that can like squeak because the East isn't that strong. Yeah. After you get like past 6, maybe even 5.
Right.
Like I could see them squeezing in there, potentially.
Yeah, I think out of those teams, I probably believe the most in the Pacers. I think it'll be interesting, like you said, if there's any kind of move with Oladipo. But I mean, like Sabonis has been really solid.
I forget he was out last year too.
Yeah, and he's been really solid so far in these last couple games, and they squeaked out that last minute win against the Celtics yesterday. So like I think out of looking at the games that were won and the wins, I feel like they have the most substantial win in beating the Celtics because the other teams, again, like they mostly beat not great teams, but I think a team that could go neck and neck with the Celtics. Obviously, that doesn't mean that they can be a matchup in the playoffs, but the Pacers were in the playoffs last year. I guess so were the Magic, but I think if I see any of those teams getting into the playoffs, I would put my money on the Pacers.
Dang, I forget the Magic are in the playoffs.
Yeah, they were the 8th seed. They were important in that they were supposed to play the game that got boycotted that started the whole thing. But that other than that, and I think they won one game against the Bucks, right? I think it was
that was the second year in a row they won the first game. We're like, what? Come on, guys, let's wrap it.
Oh, and maybe you saw that. Did you see the Terrence Ross like meme where he was like making a face? He was reacting. That was like the only good thing that's come out of Magic in the last couple of days.
Yeah, it was like Bradley Beal yelling at somebody.
Yeah, and he was just reacting on the side like, oh. But yeah, so on the other end, I wanted to quickly talk about the teams that don't have any wins. And there are a couple to me that are shocking, but I want to just talk about, like, is this mean anything? What does this mean? Um, so the ones that aren't very shocking are Pistons, Bulls, Wizards, all have no wins. Um, the Rockets, Grizzlies, and Nuggets all also don't have any wins. And then the most shocking one to me right now is the Raptors don't have any wins. But
Yeah.
it's only been 2 games, maybe some of them 3. Should we take anything out of this? Is it, I mean, like, again, a lot of those bottom teams that's not surprising at all. But what's going on with Raptors? What's going on with the Nuggets? Should there be any concern?
I can comment on probably the Raptors and the Nuggets. I'm not worried about the Nuggets. Like, I feel like we came into the season with expectations a little high for them after
the
like,
bubble
they
run
exploded. But I feel like they're just a solid team in general. Like, roster wise, they're better with Barden. They've got Harris back.
Yeah.
Bobo's got, potential. Like, everyone's still excited every time he gets on the court, and like a lot of potential room to grow there. And Jokic has just been like amazing.
Oh yeah.
Games. So I'm not as worried about them. I feel like they're also a team that kind of showed like they need time to get into a groove a little bit before they get rolling. So not worried about them. Might be a little bit worried about the Raptors. Like, it's hard to bet against Nick Nurse, but they feel like they're over the hill, dude.
Yeah. It's like was last year a fluke-ish in that, like, I feel like we were talking a lot last year about how is this team still this good and potentially contenders after losing Kawhi Leonard? And I think we were all very impressed, but I don't know if that was like sustainable. And I think now it's kind of catching up to them. Like, yeah, we don't really have a lot of pieces here enough to really hang with the big dogs of the East that we were talking about. So, and like a lot of that, I don't want to like put blame or like pinpoint anyone specifically, but I think Siakam like needs to be as good as he's shown. And like, I feel like he's really fallen off like since last year. He was an all-star last year, but I think after that, he's kind of hasn't really been putting up all-star numbers. So I think a lot of it is on him right now.
Is this his 3rd or 4th year? Do you know?
I want to say 4th, but I'm not really sure.
Because it feels like he's in like a junior or senior year slump, and I'm like, you gotta. We're expecting the train to go to keep going up, and it feels like it's just off the tracks. It feels like he's just lost a lot of confidence. But I'm super concerned. Like, Van Fleet got a big contract.
Yeah, huge contract.
And being featured in the offense. And like,
right. That's what I mean. If like your go-to guys are Fred Van Fleet and like Siakam, who's not been playing that well, like those are your go-to guys with Lowry. It's like that's gonna be tough.
And they've lost all their size. Like Gasol,
Gasol,
and they're really good size. Rather, I think they still have that guy off the bench, but. Like,
I think they'll still be a playoff team, but definitely in the bot, like, a 6 maybe.
6 or 7 maybe.
Because the teams you mentioned earlier, Bucks, Celtics, Nets, Heat, like, I can't really see them get like being better than any of those teams. And then we didn't even talk about the Sixers really. I feel like
the
Sixers will be an interesting one.
They're probably that 5th team, so.
Exactly. So like where are the Raptors going to fall? So that's an interesting one. And like, let's see, the Rockets, they have all kinds of drama going on. So I'm not surprised about that. I mean, they had their first game canceled because of COVID and then just the James Harden situation. But then like he came out and played amazing. So I don't know what's going on.
44 and 15 or something. I was like, what?
Yeah. Insane.
Like, weren't you just like 25 pounds overweight in game 1?
Weren't you just like at a strip club, like with a bunch of people? Like, what's going on? So I think he has something to prove. I think he wanted to just like maybe shut everyone up. Like I could do whatever the hell I want off court and I'm still going to be awesome. But at the same time too, like he does still want to get traded. So maybe he wants to like grab the attention of people to be like,
Yeah.
guys, in case you forgot, because of all this drama, I can still just drop 40 and like triple doubles or whatever.
Do you
So
think he
that'll
gets
be
traded
interesting.
before the year is over?
Yeah, I think so. For sure. I'm hearing now too, this is interesting, maybe a whole other topic is like I saw the Celtics getting thrown around. I don't I don't know what that
No,
would even
please
look
don't.
like. But yeah, but
Please
like
don't do it.
cuz like don't give like you can't if you're the Celtics, you can't give up like a Brown. You definitely
You
should
can't
not.
do that.
Tatum
No.
should be untouchable, I think,
Especially
but like
because
you can't give up a Brown.
especially like if he doesn't like where he wants to be. So would
Yeah.
he sign a long term deal there? And then like who says he's not gonna just force his way out again? Like I don't know.
But
Yeah,
like
he would not work in their offense at all.
do you think like I mean if Kemba is involved in that trade, I don't know. I don't know. It would be interesting.
Yeah.
It's basically if like Harden replaced Kemba, what
But
would
then
that
like
team
what
look
is
like?
Kimba and like John Wall? Like how does that work?
Yeah,
Ugh.
that's super weird.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be a terrible move for the Celtics, in my opinion. But Danny Ainge has made some bold moves in the past, so
Yeah, if you had to guess, if you had to like put money right now on where Harden ends up today, well, where would you see it going? I
I
still
would
think the
say
Sixers are a
yeah.
possibility.
I would say it depends on how Philly looks after the first like 15 games.
Yeah.
Um, we got to see a little bit more Philly. What is their record right now?
I think they're like 1-2 or
1
something.
and 2. Yeah. Yeah. They beat the Wizards, lost to the Cavs, beat the Knicks. So 2-1. So yeah, we'll see what they look like after a few more games. Because if it's not looking like Embiid and Simmons are gelling, and Doc Rivers isn't getting through to guys like they hoped he would, then I don't think Harden works with him either. But
No, it's like
oh man, he
if we had
doesn't
to
like
just
he
draw
fits.
up, yeah, I was gonna say if we had to just like draw up a team that Harden works with, it's kind of hard to do. The more that I think about it,
It's because
like
the Rockets were designed for him. It was just
yeah,
like we're gonna put guys that run, play defense, and shoot threes around him,
yeah,
and you're gonna go ISO and see what happens.
yeah. So it's like it's hard to envision a team that can even work, an existing team, rather than just trying to like make a whole new team
You know
or
what
like make the Rockets work.
the wildest potential, and you would almost need D'Antoni to come back and run this offense, would be somehow this roster isn't even possible. But if it was Steph, Clay, and Harden,
Oh my gosh.
because just imagine like Steph and Clay running around, like
Oh
trying to
my
get
God.
open while Harden's at the top of the key. Like
Yeah.
that would be an insane version of that offense. But there's no way that you could I don't know how you would rejigger the whole team to get them together.
No, yeah. I mean, it's not like the Rockets want Andrew Wiggins or
Yeah, they don't want
Oubre or
Wiggins,
anything.
Oubre, Wise. They don't want.
Yeah, maybe if you threw in Wiseman, they'd be interested. But
Yeah,
yeah,
picks for the next 3 years. Yeah,
that would be very interesting
yeah.
to
Like
have
that's the one
Harden and the
offense I could
Warriors.
like. If we were playing 2K where you like got to choose like where everybody like chose an individual player,
Yeah,
you just get 3 guys and that's how you would play.
just run around and get open.
Yeah, just like run ball screens for everybody else. Draymond running picks, Wiseman running picks, and then Harden at the top. So it'd be interesting, but never gonna happen.
That would be fun. Any other last teams that you wanna talk about here?
I mean, you threw the the Hornets as a potential league pass team
Yeah.
on the list. Hayward and Rozier are looking solid. LaMelo's not starting, which that saddens me. I thought he was going to get the start at some point. I feel like I'll tune in when they play New Orleans just to see the
The Ball brothers play each other.
play. But
Yeah, that could be a good one. Yeah, I think it's more like I don't know if they're proven to be a league pass team. I think it's more like I'm considering them
I'm
just out of
interested.
curiosity.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
I do feel like someone else mentioned this on a podcast. Like their broadcast itself is fun because it's like Del Curry and then like the other guy, the play-by-play guy is pretty fun. So yeah, and Rozier had like a highlight dunk yesterday, I think, on
yeah. On
KD. Did you see
KD.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah, on KD. Like I think that's up for debate if like
yeah,
that was really like a poster. I feel like KD was kind of trailing, and I don't know.
yeah.
I guess I'll give it to Rozier. It was a nice dunk, but I don't think that means too much. Like I don't think KD should be embarrassed or anything. Like
No, he was coming for a chase down block
right.
and didn't get it. So, but yeah, we'll see what they look like. They've got the Mavs next, so that could get ugly if
Yeah,
on.
I guess we didn't really talk too much about the Mavs. I mean, I think Luka's being Luka right now, which is awesome. But not having Porzingis right now, I think, is a big struggle for them.
Yeah, I feel like in general, a lot of teams have been, what's the word? They've been incomplete. Like they're
Yeah.
starting with like not their full
Yeah, not
card.
what their team is going to be
Yeah,
quite yet.
that's not what they look like. I don't know if you saw this earlier. I just stumbled on it when I was checking ESPN. Apparently, Maury was fined $50,000 for
Said something about Harden.
for tweeting something about Harden. So maybe they still are angling for him. So that'll be interesting. But it was one of those tweet and delete.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it is going to depend on what happens with the Sixers. But if I had to guess where he's going to end up, that's the team that's sticking out to me right now.
Yeah, I could see it. He said it was an inadvertent post from an automated app.
Oh, what? I don't buy that at all.
Yeah, okay. Sure. I don't
I
even know
don't.
I don't even know what the tweet was, but I'm like, yeah, no.
Yeah, like why would you have an automated? That makes no sense whatsoever. That's a terrible
Yeah.
excuse.
Yeah.
That's horrible. Just admit it. Just say like, yeah, I wanted to congratulate a player that I'm still close with or something. Like I'm sure it's okay to say that. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. We don't know what the tampering rules are. They're just very shady.
Right? How can as I feel like other players tweet about other players a lot. Are there certain rules of like things that you can't say? Because I
I
feel like there's a lot of times where people are like, "Man, this guy had a great game" or whatever, and it's like, why isn't that tampering?
Yeah, like the rules I'm actually really curious to read them now, but I feel like they're less strict on the players because they know they can't stop players from having conversations with one another. Like
Yeah.
that's just what's going to happen. It's a little easier to manage like a GM reaching out to a player or something, but
Yeah.
you can't stop Kyrie and whoever from like having dinner. Like you can't do anything.
Yeah,
about
that kind of
So,
stuff. But I mean, like when it's public, like if let's say, I think I even saw this one player, I don't even remember who it was like tweeting about how good Kyrie and KD are like on the Nets and
yeah,
how they're like dangerous. But it's like a current player, like so.
yeah. It's like, are you trying
Yeah,
to
are
get
you allowed to do
trying to
that?
get
But
some
like you also
Brooklyn?
like NBA can't be
Yeah,
like you can't tweet this and like take it down. Like I feel like that's
yeah.
very,
Yeah, it's too big brother. They need players like talking about the game. So